Hello and welcome to the Hyperactive Productivity Disorder. It's a podcast with ADD. You see, I can't focus on just one topic, so I'm exploring my favorite outliers of performance, branding, and creativity. And if you're driven for personal and professional improvement, you hate wasting time and can't sit still, you, my friend, also suffer from HPD, Hyperactive Productivity Disorder. But that's a good thing because the world depends on people like us for progress. So let's get to work. In this episode, I've got international communication coach and keynote speaker Vinh Giang hanging out with me. He's on a mission to inspire his students and audiences to become more loving, compassionate, and kind. He's going to open your eyes and melt your heart in this very candid interview. Take a listen.
Ernie, hello.
Hello, Vin.
Hey, brother, how are you?
It's good to see you. I am so good. So good.
Yeah, good to see you too, man. Love the color in the backdrop. It looks so
Thanks,
professional.
brother. Thank you. You know, it's interesting. Being a branding guy, you kind of have to look like you know your branding stuff.
You do.
Right?
You do.
Otherwise,
Yeah.
you have no credibility.
It's a good point. It's a good point. You're on top of it. Your branding looks great. It's very fitting.
Thanks, Vin. Thank you, Vin. Thanks so much for taking time to meet with me today. I've been following your stuff very, very heavily recently, and
awesome. Thank you.
it's good stuff. One of the things that by the way, I'm recording this. You have your permission to do so, right? Okay.
Of course.
I'm going to assume that most people know who is going to be the audience that's going to be listening to this are going to know a little bit about your background already. They know you. They've been following you, and so I've been a student of just excellent performance and lifestyle design. And the reason that I wanted to meet with you was not because just because you're an excellent speaker, which is a field that I'm kind of into, I'm getting into a little bit more strongly, but your lifestyle design, you talked about this, this idea of intentional living, where you sat down with your wife and you talked about like very specific plans, not just calendaring, not just like fitting things in, but you had mentioned like, hey, we sit down, we talk about what do we want in our life, what we don't want in our lives. And I just thought, man, that was so potent.
Oh, really? I'll bring my doc
because,
up. I'll make sure I bring my life design doc up.
Oh, dude. Because I think here's the thing that gets me excited is most of us live life in the current of life. We just kind of like move whichever way direction the life is taking us. But you you flipped that. And I wanted to get your take on why you felt that was important, because that's what rang a bell to me then.
Yep. And you know, to be very transparent too, I do that well-ish, right? Because life is life, and we fall off the life that we fall off that train. We don't follow it, and there are months where we don't do well. But to have a plan to come back to, so you can get back to living intentionally as quickly as you can, as opposed to falling off that bandwagon, falling off for a good 3 years. To me, it's not about not falling off. It's about just reducing the amount of time you take to get back on, right? And that doc is just a very fast way to get back on. So I just bring it up.
Yeah.
That's
so
cool.
You reference a document. Did someone show that to you or give that to you as an outline?
There's a story about all of that. Well, I don't know if you want to talk about all of that. We can kind of go into the backstory of how it all started, because it was between one of my best friends and I, Ali Tarai, and myself. We kind of created
he's your
a process.
Podcast. He helps host your podcast, right? Yeah.
Yep. You got it. I'm just bringing mine up. Yeah. So, and we've created a whole process that we go through every year. And we started doing this in 2016, where I was at the peak of my career and just felt really unhappy. So we can kind of go through the full backstory if you want. We can go into the pragmatics. We can go wherever you want.
Go into the pragmatics. Like, first of all, like why did you decide to do that? Because I think it's just so you're aware that you're not where you want to be, or you're going the direction you want to go, which means, time to take out the paddle and start kind of like moving versus, okay, I guess we're going to do this in our life. So when did you kind of realize I want to take control of where I'm going in my life? Or have you always intuitively known that?
No, not at all. So it was 2016. In 2016, I was at the peak of my speaking career. It was traveling all over the world. We're doing 60, 80 gigs a year. And I just felt super unhappy. And I couldn't understand why. And I felt guilty for feeling unhappy because a lot of my friends weren't doing as well as me. And then I was doing really well from a career standpoint. And then I just kept it quiet because I shouldn't be complaining. I'm living this lifestyle that people perceive to be incredible. So then I kept it to myself for a long time. And then I just remember just feeling really crap. And then it was just this one thought I still remember, Ernie, where I thought to myself, I crammed for an exam at university. It was meant to be 20 weeks of study. I did it in 1 week and I passed that exam in law. So I thought to myself, okay, if you're smart enough to be able to do that, surely you can work this out. Yeah. But then I told my wife I needed to go away. And then at that point, I had another realization that freaked me out. And it's that my entire life up until I was 26, I've never spent 7 days away by myself for myself. I kind of realized my entire life I've been, and this is not to say I'm Mother Teresa, but I was living for my parents. I was living for other people. I never took time out for me. So I said to my wife, I said, look, there's no other woman. Can I go away to New Zealand for 7 days by myself? I'm in trouble. I need to sort myself out.
Yeah.
And I went. My best friend went with me for the first day because he was concerned I was going to, kill myself or something. So he was super concerned. So he flew along with me, my best mate. And he goes, after a day there, he kind of went, oh, okay, you're okay. Look, brother, I'm a phone call away. And it was a really dark point for me. I spent, Ernie, those 7 days. I had a list of questions that I wrote. Was it an Airbnb? I stuck it up all over the walls. And I had these questions just staring at me because I'd forgotten who I was. I didn't know who I was because I was fulfilling the prophecy that my mom wanted. I was doing things that my culture wanted me to do, my family, my friends. I'd lost track of my own voice at that point. And then there's this great quote. I always forget who says it, but it's when the you that speaks to you, when it speaks, it whispers. So I needed that quiet time to find my voice again. And when I was answering the questions on the walls, the answers that I gave weren't mine. And the only reason I knew it wasn't mine was because I wrote them down. I wrote the answers to these questions. What do you do that makes time melt away? What are your priorities? And I started writing these things down. I went, wow, these are not my answers. These are the answers that society expects me to write. And then I write these down so that society will deem me a great person. And I saw through my own bullshit. And I went, oh, this is kind of messed up. And it wasn't until day 3, day 4, where I was able to discover the real answers behind the questions I wanted to ask myself. I did that in 2016. My best friend Ali Tarai was doing the same thing separately. I didn't even realize. And then in 2017, we came together and we created a process and we call it Recalibrate. And it's based off essentially satellites when they're moving through the sky, they recalibrate every single second, 2 degrees to the left, 0.4 degrees to the right. So they recalibrate all the time. The reason I found myself in that rut, Ernie, was because I have not recalibrated who I was, my values, my goals since I was 19 years old. So I had achieved all these goals that I set when I was 19, but that no longer was aligned with the person that I was at 26, 27. So I had achieved goals of a previous version of me. Therefore, I was unhappy because I was completely misaligned. I was fulfilling the dreams of someone that I no longer am.
How did you find the questions to ask yourself?
Lots of books. I've read a lot. I've always looked at reading as, I just really value it because to me, it's how you update your operating system. I was walking around for a long time in my life, Ernie, just operating off Windows 95, right? And then everything was a problem. Everything was terrible. I blamed the world for everything. And as I started reading more, I felt like, oh, I'm starting to upgrade my operating system. And as I upgrade the operating system, this computer becomes more capable. So through reading, it's why one of my podcasts with my best friend Ali is about books that we love, right? 2 guys that are not very educated talking about books is quite funny. But then I found the questions through those books, through the books that I've read. I can list some of the questions out. I'll find them after for you. But it's questions about what are you letting go of? And those series of questions were about the old identity that you're shedding.
Yeah.
What things have you let go of? What friendships have you stopped? Which parts of you are no longer serving you and a part of you? What do you
Was one of
currently
those
do?
questions, was one of those questions like faith-based? I think I heard you say something like your belief system or something like that. Is that not in line with who you are right now? Or have you questioned those? Or because sometimes we go, I'm a highly religious person,
Mm,
faith-based.
yeah,
And oftentimes we are so afraid to challenge our own belief system that
yeah,
we're like, oh, that's a no man's land. But I think
right.
there's probably a lot of health, like mental health and clarity that comes from challenging, not because you want to destroy it, but
Yeah,
because you want to strengthen or refine it.
absolutely.
But I
And
was one of those questions a belief thing, or is that just something I'm just inventing?
no, it's both. It's what values, what beliefs are still serving you, and which values and beliefs are no longer serving you. Because at
Gotcha.
different points of our lives, there are different values and beliefs that will serve us at different points. And that's when I started to realize the reason why we need to recalibrate yearly. I mean, gosh, I'd suggest it even more if we all had the time, is
Yeah.
because we are evolving at all times. Who Ernie
Mhm.
is right now is very different to who Ernie is going to be in 6 months' time. Something might happen in life, the currents of life, things you can control, things you can't control. And
Yeah.
then when those things changes, our value system potentially changes, our belief systems sometimes have to change in order for us to be able to navigate those situations. And then for some situations, you don't change the value system or the belief system, keep them strong.
Hmm. Hmm.
And I just kind of learned that the more flexible I am with my values and my beliefs, the easier and the better I'm able to navigate through life. Whereas in my life, when I had rigid values and very rigid beliefs, I moved through it in a very clunky way.
Hmm. Hmm.
And that was all based off a clip I saw from Bruce Lee. And Bruce Lee talks about, how he goes, be water, my friend. When the
Be
cup goes into
water.
a cup, it becomes the cup, becomes the teapot. And I realized I was crashing my way through life. I was crashing into this rock, crashing into that person. I went, I need to be water. I need to be
Yeah.
moving with a little bit more grace.
Right. I love it. I
Yeah.
love it. So to me, it's inspirational to be self-aware so that you can, and then your system, which by the
Yeah.
way, just send me a link. I could share that in the show notes. But
Yeah.
uh, because the more people who become self-aware and become intentional about the way they live life, the
Yeah.
greater happiness and the greater value they can bring to the world. Right? Am I right?
Yeah. And you're absolutely right. When you are happy, when you are confident, when you are achieving the things you want to achieve, you're a nicer, you're a kinder, you're a more loving, you're a
Mhm.
more compassionate person.
Yeah.
And
You.
that's just what I've discovered through, now online being connected to so many people. It's abnormal, but I notice the people who are sometimes could be the most angry or the most frustrated. These are people who haven't been able to achieve the things they wanted to achieve in their lives. And it's understandable. I understand why
Yeah.
you would be frustrated or angry, right? But as
Well,
we
see,
learn how to do this, yeah,
even like when what led to your kind of dark need for discovery, that this dark place where you needed to discover yourself, you uh you were doing well. In the eyes of most people, you would be highly successful. But that success, either that, I mean, and what's it as a speaker, that success, it comes with trappings like you're well known, you're popular, you're admired, you're respected, you're an authority, all these really wonderful things. You're also influencing for good because you're teaching about things that are uplifting and empowering, right? But
mm-hmm.
that was not either enough or was not clear enough. Uh,
Yeah,
did you continue to speak? Or I mean, obviously you're still speaking. I mean, you still was that self
not
discovery,
as
self
much.
awareness? Like, oh man,
Yeah,
yes, I am on the ball.
yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, if we go deeper on that point for a moment, right? It was self discovery, but also clarity. Because what I had realized was that, yeah, sure, I was doing okay and doing well in one area of my life. I was a one-legged table.
Mm,
My whole identity was wrapped in being a keynote speaker. That was who Vin was and all that he was. I didn't have an identity outside of that because I had to get so hyper focused to be able to build the career that I had, I did it so much so that I neglected every single other dimension of who I was as a person. And that's when I started to learn. And I remember reading a book, a detective wrote it, and he wrote that a lot of people who become detectives at the end of their careers, they sometimes kill themselves.
Yeah,
and the reason they do that is because their whole identity was wrapped up as a detective. And that's a very noble career path because you're catching the bad guys, you're doing all this justice. And then when you end it, there's nothing to hang on to anymore. And
there's no purpose anymore, right? There's no because I am not solving crimes. I am not.
That's right.
I'm done, right?
That's right. And when you have a one-legged table, you can knock it over really easily. So then I learned that, right, I need to discover the other dimensions of who I am as a person. I'm not just the keynote speaker, because I was deriving my meaning, my happiness, and everything only from one area of my life. So that's when I decided, I mean, the reason why I teach communication skills, Ernie, is because I realized in that moment when I was away in New Zealand, I went, oh, wow. When I was 18, I wrote down teacher as my first preference to go to university. But that I tore up that piece of paper because I then wrote down a pharmacist as first preference. I didn't get enough points to get into that. So the second one was accountant, and I got enough points to get into that. That wasn't me, Ernie. That was my mom and my dad. Yeah.
Right. Those outside forces saying, hey, this is what you want. But your first one was not the true you.
It was
kind of overshadowed by the level of expectations. And that's like, what's cool about the culture is like, you want your mom and dad to be proud of you. You want, like they've given you everything. So why, what's wrong with saying, mom and dad, I want you to be proud of me?
Yeah, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I just think for me, at 18, operating system was Windows DOS. So again, I didn't have great communication skills. I didn't know how to communicate my feelings. So as a result, it's easier just to comply as opposed to have the tough conversation. I had no idea how to navigate those conversations. Didn't have the emotional intelligence and the self-awareness, right? Because frontal lobe doesn't develop till you're 25. So I was a caveman. I didn't know what to do. So it was easier. The path of least resistance was to do what mom and dad wants you to do what your friends are doing, fit in. And it wasn't until I was in my late 20s when I went, oh, wow, I had forgotten that moment. I wrote down teacher. So sure, Vin, you're this performer, you're this keynote speaker, but another leg to this table is I'm a teacher. And then that's when I went down, what do you want to teach, Vin? And then I started to allow myself to go through that self-discovery process. And then the first stage workshop was born at the end of that year. First one I ever did. Yeah, it was at the end of that year. Awesome. I went, I need to build out this next table. And then I also built out the other facets of who I am. I love archery. I love camping. I have all these other hobbies now. And I feel like that's what I was missing. Success to me, I defined purely as career and money. Whereas there was so much more that definition needed to be filled out a little more. I just used what everyone else used. And I realized I needed to add to this meaning. I needed to add what this word means to me. And it has a very different meaning to me now as compared to when I was 27. So.
Can we switch gears for a little bit? I want to go to a lighter topic.
Okay. What's your favorite color?
Okay. No, it's like, I want to give our listeners a little bit of background that led us up to this conversation. Okay.
Sure.
So I'd been consuming some of Vin's content. One of my older brothers, I've got 8 brothers. Okay. One of my older brothers said, okay, he knew I was into speaking, growing my speaking career. And he said, you have got to consume some of Vin's content. I immediately fell in love with you. The content was so resonating with me that the way you spoke, the way you presented yourself, your body language. And I love the topics that you were talking about. So I'm like, you basically hit a vein. I'm eating sugar and you're at a candy store, right? So what I did is I did a drawing of Vin. I did drawing of Vin. My background, I studied illustration in university. And that led me to a career in marketing and branding and advertising and stuff. But so I did this drawing of Vin, and I wanted to make sure that he knew that I was actually drawing him, and this wasn't some AI thing. No, so I recorded myself drawing him, and I said, here's how I introduced this post. I said, a few weeks ago, I discovered Vinh Giang, and I think I called you Vinh Giang in my little video because I didn't know you very well. Vin's a charismatic speaker and communication coach that I believe started as a magician. His family are refugees from Vietnam who escaped Australia, which blessed him with a delightful Australian accent. He's got a super cool nerdy chic brand image with this thick glasses, slim fitting suits, and anime hairstyle. A big part of his brand is how he makes people feel. He radiates positivity and optimism with his great big smile, energy, and natural charm. I'm a curious guy, and I said, I'm a curious guy. When I find interesting people, my curiosity goes crazy. And then I just basically said, hey, help me get his attention by tagging him in this post. What was your reaction to that bit? And when who told you, dude, you got to check this out?
What one of my team members did, because I actually can't monitor my social media too much because it messes with my head a little bit. So yeah, one of my team members said, "Hey, this guy drew a really cool picture of you," and I was like, "Oh, where did he draw this?" And then they showed me. So then I immediately logged in and then got back to. So
awesome.
You really impressed my team and myself, because when I saw it, I was like, "Wow!"
So it worked. It worked
because you put so much effort into it. You know, it was really lovely.
And it turned out great. It doesn't always turn out great. Like art isn't just like the thing that you turn off and on. But it leads me back to this look, this image. When you're on stage today, you've got, you're a slim guy. You've got usually I often see you with a white shirt or a shirt with a little bit of pattern to it. And you've got this white hair or dark hair. And, it's sometimes a suit jacket. Have you always had that look? And when did you decide, hey, I'm gonna push it? Because what you're doing is definitely visually different. It's a very strong visual brand.
Less slim these days, but thank you for those kind words. I appreciate that. It was just an evolution. I think it was basically before that, I didn't dress very well. I didn't have a sense of style. Then I met my wife, and then my wife, the answer is rather boring. She just kind of went, "Hey, you should try this." And it was funny because when she first told me to wear these things, I was like, "No, I can't wear that. I can't pull it off." And it was just a lack of confidence. And she slowly introduced me to being a little bit more stylish, as you would say. Yeah. So yeah, it was just through learning that it's okay to stand out. There are times where you should stand out, and there are times where you don't really have to stand out, right? It's if I'm doing a podcast and I'm conversing with you, I don't feel the need to be wearing a suit or anything like that right now. However, if I'm on stage, I think that's a moment where it's important to stand out. I think it's important to think about your visual image, right? I think it's important to put thought into that, be strategic. So again, it's just giving myself permission to play with the clothes that I choose to wear, and then also be conscious that you don't always have to be playing. You don't always have to be on, right? So,
well, part of the way you look is a part of your communication. You are an expert communicator. You teach communication. You talk about pitch and your voice, cadence, characterization. I mean, you've learned so much from different types, like a singing coach. I think was a vocal coach.
Yeah.
So you've got all these communication things. Your verbal language is one part of it, but also your visual language helps you communicate. What are some things that you teach visually to help communicate when you communicate? What are some highlights for visual communication? Oh, by the way, one of which, and I'll just kind of prime the pump a little bit. You mentioned something about the visual excitement. In one of your videos, you said, if I came out on stage, put my hands in my pocket, and I said, I love guitars. I love, and the body language was completely still.
Yeah.
It would be it wouldn't be congruent. Can you talk a little about that?
Yeah, it's just matching your body language to what you're currently saying. And there's a sync that happens, right? And I see it all the time in the opposite direction, where I see people on Zoom calls and people having a chat, and then they're talking about something that they're really passionate about, but you can't see that passion on their face. You can't see that passion within their body. You don't see it anywhere. You only hear it. And I think a lot of the times when we think about communication, we only think about words as being the only modality for communication to occur. Whereas words are not the only modality. I mean, think about this. This is the example I often give. It's if you've got a sheet of music and you've got music notes, how you play those notes matter. Because I could have the greatest music written by Beethoven, and if you play it poorly, I will not perceive it to be the greatest music written. So to me, How you say what you say matters. What you say matters too, but how you say it matters, because that has an impact on that has an impact on the receiver end.
Mm-hmm.
So again, that's why I stress the importance of body language. And then that's when I'd go to talk about body language. Right? Your body language supports the things that you say. And I often see people not use that at all. And the biggest one when it comes to virtual communication is facial expressions.
Yeah.
People fall victim to what's known as an RBF, right? Which is resting something face, right? We'll just call it resting blank face, right?
Right.
G version. But we fall victim to a blank face. And what happens when you have a blank face is there's no emotion in your voice. So one of the biggest things I would say here to the listeners is that your face is the remote control that allows you to inject emotion into your voice. And as you move your face more, you inject more emotion into your voice. And it's easier to connect with someone when you can hear the emotion in their voice.
Yeah. Is there something that you feel like if you were to wear, if somebody came and said, hey, I want you to wear this on stage, that would absolutely dampen your ability to perform at your best, what would it be? What would something like, this is not going to work for me? Like, the reason I want to kind of tap into how important it is to look the part.
Yeah. I think if I wore short shorts and a singlet, I think that's going to really impact my ability to be effective. Yeah,
it'll be a little distracting.
Yeah. I think that would be non-functional, and that would definitely have a negative impact on the way I talk. Even
I saw a speaker one time, a very highly paid speaker at a large conference, was wearing just a black t-shirt, jeans, kind of like older tennis shoes. He had long hair pulled back in kind of like a half man bun, so it's kind of coming back out. And he was kind of scruffy looking. He crushed it.
Yeah.
But his appearance allowed him to be unexpected. You know, if he was wearing a suit, there's kind of like I expect him to kind of go down this path.
Right.
But he was like almost like a comedian, like kind of like a comedian where he wasn't dressed up. He was like, I'm going to be so. He could have just been some dude off the street, right? Yet you have this look of kind of like this, and you're still thin, by the way. So this kind of chic look, this nerdy. Do you recognize that? That's like, yeah, totally. I own it. I'm like that's me. Intellectual, creative, theatrical in as well. Like, is that you? Was that intentional to look like that, or was like, okay, that's just who I am? That's.
I'll tell you how that came about. I think it might be valuable for the audience.
Yeah.
I'm a combination of a series of speakers. When I was developing who I wanted to be and who I wanted to become, I thought a lot about how chefs become chefs. You know, chefs, to become a great chef, you learn a recipe and you learn it from a great chef, and then you copy it at the start, and then you cook it and you do well, and then you go, wow, that was amazing. And then you get confident, and then you add lemon, you add chili, you add extra garlic, obviously always add extra garlic. Right. And then you do all these different things and you make that recipe your own. And great chefs, they imitate many great chefs to be able to develop their own style of cooking, presentation, taste, everything. And I took that same thing and I did it with speakers. So when I started to emulate my favorite magicians. I would emulate Darren Brown. I would emulate a little bit of David Copperfield's theatrical showmanship. And then I looked for my favorite speakers. I loved Simon Sinek. I loved Brene Brown. I loved Les Brown. So then I started to mimic them. And then I tried on certain characteristics and I went, oh, I love this. Not a fan of that. All good. I'll take this. I'll take this behavior. I'll take that behavior. And then who you see currently in front of you is a mixture of the people that I adore the most. And I've been able to create a unique version of myself based on the mix. I mean, if you read the book, Steal Like an Artist, that is a must update for the operating system, because it says if you copy from one person, it's plagiarism. But if you copy from hundreds of people, it's original. And to me, that's what I learned about communication, is that First, sure, start by fixing some of the foundational things that's causing a lot of problems that create lack of clarity when I communicate. Once you've done that, where do you go from there? Well, you need inspiration. So I picked 5 to 10 speakers that I liked, chose a few things that I liked from their recipe, tried it on, mixed it all together. So what you see in front of you is visually, I did that. Vocally, I did that. Storytelling wise, I did that. Mannerisms, I did that. And, I'm not clever enough to come up with that by myself. So I stood on the shoulders of giants and learned from many wonderful chefs.
Thank you. Thanks for sharing that. You mentioned that you read a book called Essentialism that influenced your, you kind of took some time off of LinkedIn. Maybe it was social media in general, but you said, look, after reading Essentialism, it kind of changed the frame of mind, and I approached LinkedIn in a new and different way. I read that book too, but did not glean what you gleaned. What was it do you remember what you read?
Yeah.
What kind of helped you get that focus?
There was a specific quote, and I'm going to butcher it, but it's, you have to say no to a lot of things so you can say yes to your highest value or highest impact actions. I was saying yes to everything, Ernie. I was saying yes to, when I started my social media, I was managing my LinkedIn, I was managing my Instagram, I was managing my Facebook, I was managing my TikTok, I was managing my YouTube, I was doing all of it. And I realized by me saying yes to all of it, I was doing all of it terribly. And that book taught me the power of focus, the power of being single-minded, right? And I realized what my strength was. I mean, we all have an 80-20. What's the 20% you do that gives you 80% of your results, right? My 20% was not managing social media. My 20% was content creation. So then when I kind of boiled everything down and looked at the 80-20 rule, which the book talked about a lot, I went, what is my 20%? And I went, oh, it's content creation, not content distribution. So that's when I decided to take on and bring on team members that will purely be responsible for just content distribution. So I realized that the importance of taking people and having highly specific roles as opposed to a person doing everything. Now, of course, as an entrepreneur, when you start, you got to do it all. I get it. Once you start making some money, I think it's important to reinvest and then hire specific team members for specific tasks. So then I used Essentialism to define my role in the business. I used it to define my content distributor's role. And my content distributor and my content creator are also 2 different people. Right. So I've got a videographer who creates and chops up the content. Then I've also got a distributor who purely their job is to manage all the platforms, upload every day. So I've learned how to systematize it and use Essentialism as the kind of core backbone that all of us are not going to do too much, because if we try to do everything, we do everything average.
Right. I love that. When did you see the big kind of upswing in your like LinkedIn following and activity and stuff? How long ago was that? And how long were you like at it before you're going, okay, I'm starting to see some incremental growth here?
It's funny you bring up LinkedIn, because LinkedIn is our worst performing platform.
Is it really?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, by far, it's not a strong platform for us. And as a result, we haven't focused a lot on LinkedIn, to be honest. We focus mainly on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, and Facebook. So our primary focus is there. We haven't spent the time to really nail LinkedIn just yet. It's a different beast. It's a different platform, different audience, etc. So
what's your highest performing platform right now then?
Instagram, 100%.
Instagram, okay,
100% right now.
Really? Because I would think that your audience would be like, I just think professionally. Maybe that's the trap I'm in. Like you're a speaker and you're a coach. I just assume that people who are, I'm looking for a speaker, I'm on LinkedIn.
You'd be shocked. I mean, I would say the majority of my speaking inquiries, right? I'm only doing about 8 to 10 events a year now. I don't do very many anymore, but I can tell you the majority of my inquiries for speaking comes through TikTok. It's outrageous. It's outrageous. I had a senior VP of a Fortune 100 company reach out because of videos he was watching of me on TikTok. And that happens, Ernie, on a weekly basis.
Is it because they are looking at it from a consumer perspective? Because I can't imagine, okay, I'm a senior executive, I'm looking for business solutions on TikTok? Or are they just cruising through stuff and they're going, oh man, this guy's awesome?
Well, look, everything I say from this point is pure speculation because I'm not an expert in this area. So please just know that this is just me guessing. But I feel that you're right in that when you're watching TikTok, you are a consumer. Whereas when you're using LinkedIn, you're an active entrepreneur or you're an active professional trying to progress your career. So when you're on LinkedIn, you're thinking about yourself more. When you are on TikTok, you just want to be entertained, right? So I think there's a shift in thinking there that occurs. So when you're in consumer mode, it's different to when you're in business. I'm here to get business. I'm here to look for business for myself. So I think there's a slight difference in the way we approach it. I mean, I don't know what it is, but it's crazy because they're getting crazy inquiries through TikTok and Instagram.
Yeah. So do you direct your content, your video editors, make educational, informative, but entertaining? Make sure that stuff pops. Do you give them that direction so that they can then go and cut up your, because a lot of the stuff I see of you is like, hey, this is a 1 minute clip of a 45-minute keynote or a presentation. And you see, and I've seen the same environment with multiple, you've harvested multiple clips out of a single event that are, ooh, that's a good bite. And they put it up there. Is that the direction you give them, or do they go, look, we know what we're doing? We got this.
No. We meet every month. My content team and I meet every month. So essentially every month we do like a 2 to 3 hour meeting. We look at what works, what's currently doing well. And we also map out our favorite influencers and we look at what they're doing, what's currently doing well on theirs. So then we're continually trying to learn and adapt to what is currently working really well on social media. So we look at our own data as a data set, and then we look at other people's data as well. So it's a constant recalibration process as to this month we did something, and the next one we're like, oh, let's continue to do that. Make sure we grandfather that in because that's always working. This other one, it's not working anymore. Let's move it out. Let's try something else. So it's always changing. Fun is definitely something that I work hard to always include. I'm doing a masterclass series right now. We've got people from all over the world. I just finished class 1, and we've added so much fun to it because, like the other day, I was just sitting in the car and it just hit me. I went, oh wow! All I do is what I do that's different is I make learning fun.
Yeah,
that's it. Whether it's a keynote and magic, or whether it's in my workshops and we do crazy VFX things that are funny, and then it's like, oh, I'm just making learning fun.
Yeah,
and I think
do.
That's really all. I don't think it's all that incredible and amazing. I just think, oh, well, we've just focused on making. And here's the thing, Ernie. I got someone who bought my online course last week, and I got an email, came through. Hey, Vin, I want a refund. I feel like the course you focus so much on entertainment, you focus so much on the fun that I felt like it devalued your content and I didn't find it useful at all. I'd like a refund. So I was like, oh, cool. That's all good. But then I realized as well is that before, Ernie, I used to try to please everyone, and I try to please that person too. And then I try to make it super, this is all content, super serious.
Right.
And I wasn't being who I am. And then I was trying to please everyone. And you know what happens when you try to please everyone? You please no one.
Please nobody. That's right.
That's it. So
that's right.
Yeah, I really adore fun. I look at it as you and me, which is big children. There's no such thing as adults, just big children pretending to be adults. So I'm just a big man child, Ernie, and I hope some of that comes through.
It does. I got 2 last questions for you. They should be short, but
sure.
Any business strategies that you executed that did not meet your expectations? Because from the outside, I want it. You say, and I've seen you many times say this, look, I don't have it all figured out. I'm still struggling like anybody else, right? Is there anything in particular where you felt like, man, I thought this was going to be great. I invested time and effort and maybe some money into this, and it just did not produce the fruit that I was hoping it would?
Oh, okay.
Or do you hit home runs every time you get up to bat?
No, I'm just trying to think of. I would say, it's hard because everything I do, Ernie, and I'm trying to be as transparent as possible, because everything I do, version 1 always sucks. Always. And I don't look at things as either wrong or right, really. I just look at them as version 1.0, 2.0, 3.0, 4.0, 5.0, 6.0, 7.0, 8.0, 9.0. It works. Success is achieved at version 10.0, right?
Gotcha.
For example, I spent lots of money on my keynote speaking career right at the start. I bought into masterminds. I did all of these things. And you could look at that as a failure because in the first 2 years, I had no speaking career to show for it. But to me, that was me trying to become a speaker 1.0. And the first keynote I wrote sucked. But then I wrote the second keynote, then the third, then the fourth, and I refined it. So to me, when I look at any failures in my life, gradually they kind of worked out because I don't view it as a once-off thing. I don't do many things once off because, for example, okay, online, right now in total, we have over 3 million followers on all platforms, right? However, just 12 months ago, my Instagram was at 12,000 people. And I paid a videographer 85 grand a year and flights and hotel to follow me to every single gig that I did for 5 years before that, to film all this content, create all this content. And I had 12,000 followers on Instagram. That was a failure in that moment. It seems like a failure, but instead of a failure, I just word that as Instagram 1.0 journey, then 2.0, 3.0, 4.0, 5.0, and we worked it out. So the reason why I'm so reluctant and I paused for so long was because you made me realize that the things that I do tend to just evolve and they go from one thing to another because I did invest a massive amount of money into documenting my journey. Didn't work for 9 years.
So in the moment of measuring back then, you could say amount of effort and money and spent versus income, failure. But it's only failure in that snapshot, that one slice of time.
That's right.
The continued effort, all of a sudden, not all of a sudden, over time, those efforts, that was just the runway. You can't take a jumbo jet off the tarmac in 20 feet. It takes a whole lot of time before it starts lifting off. So, but I appreciate that framing success that includes the failures, that you can't get to success without the runway, without the investment.
I always tell my team anytime we start anything new, I say to them, hey, this is 1.0. I have zero expectations on this because success it could come at 2.0 if we're lucky, or where I'm expecting it, 12.0. It's all right. This new journey we're going on, all good. Don't put pressure on yourself. Increase the timeline of expectation. Don't minimize it because there's a quote that I always think of when I try anything new, Ernie, and it's, we always overestimate what we can do in 12 months and we underestimate what we can do in 12 years. So I flip it around now. I underestimate what I can do in 12 months and I overestimate what I can do in 12 years.
Yeah. Beautiful. What are some things that you want people to do right now? I mean, you've got an audience here. Listening to this podcast in a little bit. What do you want them to do after listening to this? What would give them the most benefit? Like is it a communication course? Because you offer, like I'm going to be in one of those courses. I'm trying to like juggle things out, but I love what you're doing, and I know that it can lead. Man. The things I can learn from you. Will help me so much in my speaking. I am already a good speaker. I want to be way good, right? So there's nothing wrong with learning more stuff to get you better.
I love the way you use your voice. It's beautiful. I love the expression. I love the emotion. It's beautiful.
Well, thanks. But I can learn more. What would you want people to do? We all
can learn more. I can learn more. Well, what I'd like is this. I mean, if I asked anything of my audience, I'd ask this. I sat down with my team earlier this year and I said, look, what's our purpose here? What are we doing? I get it. We teach communication skills, but what are we really doing here? And, I know you can see me because right now we're on video. I've got a tattoo. It's not because I'm cool. It's more because it's meaningful to me. And the tattoo is of a boat and the boat is sinking. My family are refugees from Vietnam and the helicopters represent the Vietnam War. And I got this tattoo because I wanted to remember where I came from. My family, we now call Australia home, and I called the US home for a period as well. But we're lucky to call Australia home because when we had nowhere to go, the Australian people opened their doors and gave us a place to stay. I am here talking to you right now, doing the things that I'm doing that you may see as being great and brilliant. I get to do that, Ernie, because of love, kindness, and compassion. That's why I'm here. It reminds me every day when I look at myself in the mirror in the mornings, I go, wow, I'm here because of love, kindness, and compassion. And when I teach communication skills, I hope that I can inspire my students to become more loving, more compassionate, and kind. And realize that they have an instrument that, based on how they use this instrument, can make people feel loved, can actually radiate kindness and compassion. And
beautiful.
That's my goal. I tell my team, I say, we may be teaching communication skills, but what we're really here to do is we're going to try and work hard to make the world a little bit kinder, a little bit more loving, a little bit more compassionate. That's how we make an impact.
Well, that's beautiful. Beautiful. Using the skills that you have, the experience you've got to promote that specific objective. Well, beautiful. Ben, thank you so much.
Thanks, Ernie,
for joining with me. I feel a great connection. I appreciate your enthusiasm, your love of life, and you reek of positivity. If that's what you can, and I think it's contagious. I appreciate you promoting that kind of stuff, because I know every day we don't live in an optimistic, positive frame of mind every day, but that is what you are promoting. That is what you're producing, and that's what you're showing the world. So thank you so much. From many fans, from the voice of many fans, I just want to express my appreciation for you. You're phenomenal.
Thanks for having me. Thanks for all the kind words and all the love that you sent my way, all received and all felt. Thank you, Ernie.
Awesome. We'll see you later, okay? Thank you for joining me. Hey, if you like this podcast, be sure to mash that subscribe button and send me an email, me@earnburn.com. And if you want to know more about me, visit earnburn.com. Easy peasy. See you next time.